What is going on, everything here, back with another Honkai Star Rail guide, and today I'm here with the full build guide for one of the characters that I'll be rerunning during the 3.2 first half, being Acheron. So in this video, I'm going to be taking you over her kit and Eidolons, then I'll be taking you over her best Lightcone options, followed by that will be best Relic sets and Planar Ornaments, and then finally Mainstat and Substat recommendations for the Relic and Ornaments. I plan on having a full build guide for every single 3.2 character. Castress is already out. The Feud guide is also out. You are now watching Acheron, and there will soon be one for Jiaoqiu, soon one for Anaxa, and for Dr. Feixiao, I will be linking a guide I did make this year already. So if you're interested in any of those characters, be sure to check them out. Before I get into the video, if you guys find this video helpful in any way, shape, or form, dropping a like would be greatly appreciated. If you're new or haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe and turn on the bell icon for future videos like this, along with all other types of Star Rail content. And let's get straight into the video. So Acheron is a lightning character following the path of Nihility. Her basic attack deals lightning damage equal to 100% of Acheron's attack to a single target enemy. Her skill gains 1 point of Slash Dream, inflicts 1 stack of Crimson Knot on a single target enemy, dealing lightning damage equal to 160% of Acheron's attack to this target, as well as lightning damage equal to 60% of Acheron's attack to adjacent targets. Her ultimate, sequentially unleash Rainblade 3 times and Stygian Research 1 time, dealing lightning damage equal to 372% of Acheron's attack to a single target enemy, as well as lightning damage up to 300% of Acheron's attack to other targets. Rainblade deals lightning damage equal to 24% of Acheron's attack to a single target enemy and removes up to 3 stacks of Crimson Knot from the target. When Crimson Knot is removed, immediately deals lightning damage equal to 15% of Acheron's attack to all enemies. For every stack of Crimson Knot removed, the damage multiplier is additionally increased up to a maximum increase of 60%. Stygian Research deals lightning damage equal to 120% of Acheron's attack to all enemies and removes all Crimson Knots. Crimson Knot cannot be applied to enemies during the ultimate. For talent, when Slash Dream reaches 9 points, the ultimate can be activated. During the ultimate, reduces enemies' toughness regardless of weakness types and reduces all enemies' all-type res by 20% until the end of the ultimate. When any unit inflicts debuffs on an enemy target while using their ability, Acheron gains 1 point of Slash Dream and inflicts 1 stack of Crimson Knot on a target. If debuffs are inflicted on multiple targets, then the 1 stack of Crimson Knot will be inflicted on the enemy target with the most Crimson Knot stacks. This effect can only trigger once for every ability use. After an enemy target exits the field or is defeated by any unit while Acheron is on the field, their Crimson Knot stacks will be transferred to the enemy target with the most Crimson Knot stacks on the whole field. The technique immediately attacks the enemy. At the start of each wave, gains Quadrivalent Ascendance, dealing lightning damage equal to 200% of Acheron's attack to all enemies and reducing toughness of all enemies irrespective of weakness types. When breaking weaknesses, triggers the lightning weakness break effect. Quadrivalent Ascendance, after using ultimate, Acheron gains 1 point of Slash Dream and inflicts 1 stack of Crimson Knot on a single random enemy. If attacking a normal enemy, immediately defeats them without entering combat. When not hitting enemies, no technique points are consumed. For her bonus traces, her A2, when the battle starts, immediately gains 5 points of Slash Dream and applies 5 stacks of Crimson Knot to a random enemy. When Slash Dream reaches its upper limit, for every point of Slash Dream that exceeds the limit, gains 1 stack of Quadrivalent Ascendance, enables Quadrivalent Ascendance to stack up to 3 times. Her A2, when there are 1 or 2 Nihility characters other than Acheron on the team, the damage dealt by Acheron's basic attack, skill, and ultimate increases to 115% or 160% of the original damage respectively. And her A6, when the ultimate's Rainblade hits enemy targets that have Crimson Knot, the damage dealt by Acheron increases by 30%, stacking up to 3 times and lasting for 3 turns. And when Stygian Research triggers, additionally deals damage for 6 times, each time dealing lightning damage equal to 25% of Acheron's attack to a single random enemy and is considered ultimate damage. For her Eidolons, her E1, when dealing damage to debuffed enemies, increases crit rate by 18%. Her E2, the number of Nihility characters required for the trace the Abyss to achieve its highest possible effect is reduced by 1. When this unit's turn starts, gains 1 point of Slash Dream and inflicts 1 stack of Crimson Knot on the enemy target with the most Crimson Knot stacks. Her E4, when enemy targets enter combat, inflicts them with ultimate damage vulnerability, increasing the amount of ultimate damage they take by 8%. And her E6, increases the all-type respend for the ultimate damage dealt by Acheron by 20%. The damage dealt by basic attack and skill will now be considered ultimate damage and can reduce enemy toughness regardless of weakness types. When breaking weakness, triggers the lightning weakness break effect. Now for the best Lightcone options for Acheron, her best one is obviously going to be her own signature Lightcone, which provides a 36% increase to crit damage. When the wearer hits an enemy, inflicts Mirage Fizzle on the enemy, lasting for 1 turn. Each time the wearer attacks, this effect can only trigger 1 time on each target. The wearer deals 24% increased damage to targets afflicted with Mirage Fizzle, and the damage dealt by ultimate additionally increases by 24%. Acheron is one of the biggest characters in the game that will get a buff from their actual Lightcone. A lot of characters in this game do function quite well without their Lightcone, but Acheron is one that gets one of the biggest buffs you possibly can from her signature Lightcone. And that is not only due to the fact that every damage dealt increase and that also crit damage you are getting is super important, but for the fact this Lightcone actually does give her access to an active debuff that would actually give her a charge. The only way Acheron herself actually does give her a charge at E0 S0 is when you use the skill, as it does state it gives you a charge. Crimson not being afflicted is a debuff, but it's not one that actually counts as giving you a charge, as it's considered a different kind of debuff that doesn't count to how her kit works. This Lightcone gives you access to Mirage Fizzle, which is a debuff that is considered an active debuff to give her a stack. And now doing a basic attack will give you a actual charge, and a skill will now give you 2 charges, 3 total if you do have E2 technically. So that is so important. So you account for the fact that this Lightcone does give you 36% crit damage, and as she is a crit based DPS, it's going to be very important. On top of that, you also deal 24% increased damage to enemy targets that do have Mirage Fizzle, so more damage from your skill and your ultimate. And her ultimate, which is her main source of damage, is also getting an additional 24% increase to damage dealt to make it hit that much harder, and you are also gaining access to a debuff that is going to let her herself give her more points for her ultimate, which is why her Lightcone is so valuable and is far and none her best option with nothing coming close. Another really good option you can use is the 4-star Lightcone Goodnight and Sleep Well, which for every debuff the target enemy has, damage dealt by the wearer increases by 12%, stacking up to 3 times, and also applies a dot, and at S5 it becomes a 24% increase. So at S5 you can get up to a 72% increase in damage dealt, which is a very big, massive increase to the damage you would be doing. And since Acheron is a debuff based DPS, you are always running other Nihoti characters to help her gain her ultimate and also applying those debuffs to enemies. You will practically always have the full effect of this Lightcone on the enemies no matter what team you are running, if it is a good team for her. So practically always you would have a total of up to 72% increase to your damage dealt on your Acheron, which is going to be a significant increase in her damage, which is why this Lightcone is another very good option you can use. Another good option is actually Silver Wolf signature Lightcone, which increases the wearer's effect hit rate by 24%. When the wearer deals damage to an enemy that currently has 3 or more debuffs, increases the wearer's crit rate by 12%. After the wearer uses their basic attack, skill, or ultimate, there is a 100% base chance to implant Aether Code on a random hit enemy that does not yet have it. Targets with Aether Code will receive 12% increased damage for 1 turn. Unfortunately, the effect hit rate is really whatever because she doesn't need it, but you are getting a free 12% crit rate to enemies that do have 3 or more debuffs, and as I did state for Goodnight and Sleep Well, that's not going to be an issue considering the teammates you do use with her. And you are also gaining access to another debuff that could help you get more charges with Acheron herself with Aether Code. And the enemies with Aether Code just take more damage, which is obviously going to further increase her damage, and also anyone on her team that is going to be actively attacking the enemies, which is why this is another Lightcone option you can use. And another Lightcone that can be situationally powerful is the Boundless Courier Lightcone, which gives a 8% increase to crit rate, and the wearer deals 24% more crit damage to enemies that are currently slowed or have reduced defense. And at S5 it is a 16% increase to crit rate with a 48% more crit damage dealt to enemies that do have the slow or reduced defense. So the crit rate is going to be nice, as again she is a crit based DPS, and the big crit damage increase you would be getting as well is also very good for her damage. The only thing you do got to know is the fact that this Lightcone may restrict some of the options you do have for Nihoti teammates, but a good amount of her best ones such as Pela or Black Swan do have lowering defense. So if you are running them, you would have access to this, and if you are using someone like Welt who can slow, that's another option you can use. Silver Wolf herself can also actually slow or reduce defense, so you have 2 more options with her. The only thing you do got to know is if you do have Jiaoqiu, which is Acheron's far and none best Nihoti teammate, he has vulnerability and ult vulnerability, so he does not have access to slow or reduce defense. So definitely keep that in mind. This Lightcone is very good, but you will have to keep knowing who you are using to make sure you get the full effect, because if you don't have the second half of the Lightcone, it is very much weaker. But if you are able to use it, it's a great option. Now for some of the best relic sets for Acheron. The best in slot for Acheron is going to be the Pioneer or the debuff set, which the 2-piece increases damage dealt to enemies with debuffs by 12%, and the 4-piece gives 4% crit rate. The wearer deals 8%/12% increased crit damage to enemies with at least 2/3 debuffs. After the wearer inflicts a debuff on enemy targets, the aforementioned effects increases by 100%, lasting for 1 turn. So as I mentioned, you are always running her with a debuff based team because that is how her kit works, so you practically always will have 3 or higher debuffs on the enemies. So the 2-piece will just be giving you a free increased damage dealt by 12% because enemies will always be debuffed. The 4-piece gives you some crit rate, which is nice, and you gain more crit damage dealt to enemies that have the 2/3 debuffs. And the Crimson Knot in Acheron's kit actually does proc the Pioneer set. For some reason, it doesn't actually give her a charge because of the way it works, but is considered a debuff in a way that actually does proc the set. So she is actually able to get the aforementioned increase by 100%. So she actually is able to get the aforementioned effects increase by 100% part of this, which is why this is far and none her best in slot. Another good option you can use is the 4-piece of the Scholar set, which 2-piece gives you 8% crit rate, and the 4-piece increases damage dealt by skill and ultimate by 20%. After using ultimate, additionally increases the damage dealt by the next skill by 25%. If this was backwards, it would be a lot better, considering Acheron's main damage source is her ultimate, but anyway, the 2-piece is great because it is giving you 8% crit rate, so that's going to be nice for your crit stats, and you get a free 20% increase to damage dealt for your skill and ultimate, which her skill does do good damage, and it's buffing her main source of damage, which is her ultimate. And once you do use your ultimate, the next skill you do gets an additional 25% increase to damage dealt, which is still good. As I mentioned, her skill does do good damage. It's not buffing her ultimate for the second part there, which once again is her main source of damage, but it is still a nice damage increase you can get, which is why it's another good set you can use. Another option you can use is 4-piece of the Lightning set. 2-piece increases lightning damage by 10%, and the 4-piece, when the wearer uses their skill, increases the wearer's attack by 20% for one turn. Not much to really talk about here. 2-piece is going to increase the damage type she does have because she is lightning, so an extra 10% is going to increase her damage. And now anytime you do use your skill, you get 20% attack for one turn, which is going to further increase your damage by a bit because it is more attack you are getting. So it is another option you can use. Past that, it is going to be combining 2-pieces, so you can do 2-piece of the debuff set with 2-piece Scholar, or 2-piece one of those and do 2-piece of one of the attack percent increasing sets. So you have the Hero set, Wind Soaring set, you have the Dot set, you have Musketeer, or you can do 2-piece of any of those and do 2-piece of the Lightning set as well. So once again, best in slot is the 4-piece Pioneer set. If not that, you can do Scholar. If not that, you can do the Lightning set, and then 2-pieces of 2-piece of the debuff set with Scholar, or 2-piece of either of those with any of the attack percent increasing sets, or any of those with 2-piece of the Lightning set. For Planar Ornaments, her best in slot is going to be the Izmo set, which increases the wearer's attack by 12%. When entering battle, if at least one teammate follows the same path as the wearer, then the wearer's crit rate increases by 12%. Acheron will always have at least one Nihility character with her, even if you do have E2, because you still need one to get the full effect, and you always will have another Nihility on the teammate unless you're doing some wacky setup. So you practically are just getting a free increase to crit rate by a whole 12% at that, so that's going to be a very, very nice increase for your ratio and lets you focus more on attack and also crit damage. And you're also getting a free 12% attack, so that's going to be nice, which is why this set is very easy to use and is also really good. Another really good option is actually Inertial Slaughter, which gives 8% crit rate, and when the wearer's current crit rate reaches 50% or higher, damage dealt by the wearer's ultimate and follow-up attack increases by 15%. So free 8% crit rate, and you will practically have 50% or higher crit rate most of the times on a proper build Acheron, and then you get the ultimate and follow-up attack damage increased by 15%. Follow-up you can ignore because Acheron does not do follow-ups, but as I mentioned multiple times now, her main source of damage is the ultimate, so getting a 15% increase to the damage dealt by the ultimate is going to be good, which is why it's another option you can use. These next two options are more if you are running something like speed boots, so if you're doing a -1 speed setup, but you would be hitting around the 135 speed mark, so one of the options is obviously going to be Glamoth, which gives 12% attack, and when the wearer's speed is equal to or higher than 135/160, where it deals 12%/18% more damage. So free 12% attack, and in this case you would practically always have 135. There's mostly always going to be the case where you do not hit 160, so it's usually always going to be 12%. But if you are able to hit the 160 speed threshold in battle, say certain buffs or a specific setup that actually regards buffing her speed by a good amount, and you get the 18%, then it becomes even more valuable. But in most cases we consider the 12% increase here, so a free 12% increase to damage and a free 12% increase to attack if you do hit the 135 speed threshold, which is only going to be if you're mainly doing a -1 speed setup. In those cases, this is another option you can use because both those buffs you are getting is going to be beneficial. And then the last option would be Space Station, which gives you up to a 24% increase to attack, 12% for free, and if you have 120 speed or higher, you get an additional 12%. And you'd only really be having 120 speed or higher if you are already going to the breakpoint speed, so it just becomes free 24% attack. You practically never will actually have 120 speed if you're not going for the breakpoint speed, because then you're probably doing something wrong, or you're just really unlucky and all your rolls went into speed and you just only get to 120 speed. Then kind of is what it is. But in cases where you do have good spacing station pieces up and you are doing the 135 plus speed for a -1 speed build, you can use this at least until you farm a better set. For the main stats on the relics, for the body, you want to run crit rate or crit damage corresponding to which one you will need more. For the feat, you mainly will be doing attack percent and paired with a hyper speed support, but you can also bring her up to breakpoint, preferably 135, and getting your Sunday/Bronia to 134. There's also a setup you can do where you get Bronia to 160-ish speed with Acheron to 135 if you do have the E2 Bronia and get that 30% speed buff. That also does actually bring Acheron to 160 speed, but that's a setup you would be considering yourself. And in those cases where you do want her to get to breakpoint speed for -1 speed setups or that Bronia setup, then you can run speed boots and try to get to about 135 speed. But in most cases, most people will do attack percent boots, which is going to be better for her damage. For the orb, attack percent is better than lightning damage because she has more sources of damage in her kit, so attack percent does scale better, but if you have a good lightning orb, you can use it. If you have a better attack orb, then perfect. The lightning orb still does work well, but you want to prioritize an attack orb, and for the link rope, you want attack percent. For the substats, first, you want to prioritize to the breakpoint speed if you are going for that. If you're going for a base speed with attack percent boots, then you can ignore this step entirely, but if you are doing a -1 speed setup or that Bronia setup I was talking about with E2 Bronia, then you obviously want to focus on getting her to about 135 speed or 134 with breakpoint. Past that is your generic DPS rolls, so crit rate, crit damage, attack percent. So once again, if you are doing a specific setup for speed, you want to get her to breakpoint, you want to focus on that first, but if you are doing attack percent boots for base speed, then you ignore it. And then past that, generic crit rate, crit damage, and attack percent, as she is a crit based DPS. And up, that is the full build guide for Acheron. Once again, hope you guys found the video helpful. If you did, drop a like, it would be greatly appreciated. If you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe and turn on the bell icon for future videos like this along with all other types of Star content. Yep, that's all. Peace out.